Welcome to The Unspoken Truth. I'm your host, Rob Bruss, and I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Ed Anderson, over there in Minnesota. It's 2:36 p.m. Minnesota time, and it's 5:36 a.m. Sydney time here in the future and the following day. How are you today, Ed?
Living the dream, Robbie. Thanks for asking. How are you down there? How are you down under there?
It's really good, really good. I've got a fun show here lined up for us today. You got a bit of seriousness on the front end, but we're going to play with some culture on the back end of the show, which we don't normally talk about. We're normally talking about the news headlines, but this is the unspoken truth from a Hollywood insider, and we're going to get some inside gouge there. Some things you probably already know, and we'll have a bit of a laugh towards the end of the show here about that as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time here, welcome to The Unspoken Truth. It's great to have you here. We're available as a podcast, so make sure you open up your favorite podcasting app and check us out over there as well. We've encroached into the top 200 in Apple Podcasts for daily news, which is a proud achievement for me, given that there's like a gazillion and a half thousand million gazillion podcasts on planet Earth. There's a hell of a lot of them, and if we're in the top 200, we're doing something right there, and we can't do that without our listeners. So thank you for your support there. On Spotify, it's available as a video podcast as well. I find it actually works a bit better in Spotify than it does on YouTube. So check it out over there if you've got a Spotify account. And come on over to the Telegram account as well. Just scroll down below. All of the links are in the description. And check us out on Telegram as well. We've got a whole lot of unspoken truth that we simply cannot show here on this platform. There's a bunch of content that's been censored off YouTube recently, and it's been showing up on Twitter. And if you don't have a Twitter account, or it's pretty hard to find that stuff, I see it in my account. I like to pull it out of there and put it into Telegram because it's a bit of a centralized repository for all the things that are not allowed. It's like the naughty boy and the naughty girl corner that we can go and do all naughty stuff over there and no one can censor us. It is really good. So make sure you pop on over to Telegram and join us over there as well. All right, let me show you what's going on today's show. Ed's got a quick topic, a quick report on who wants central bank digital currencies and why on earth would they want something like that. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation. This is something we've been tic-tacking on now for probably 2 years, yeah? A long time.
Yep.
So we're edging closer to the edge of totalitarian control with central bank digital currencies, and the division of our society and the destruction of your family are the first two things in the Communist Manifesto. And the final thing is the complete destruction of the economy. And that's how that's going to happen with central bank digital currencies. It's pretty crazy. And we're going to show you some details on that as well. I've got a couple of reports for you here today. I'm going to show you a AI video. You've probably heard in the last couple of months, really, it hasn't been that long. You've probably heard that deep fakes and AI are going to influence an election. They're going to change all sorts of things. And I've got a video. It's actually a Russian video. Remember, I'm not some sort of Putin apologist or some sort of Russian bro, but it comes from Russia Today, or it was put out by Russia Today. And it shows you exactly how these deep fakes and these parodies can actually swing your opinion. And if you're not really careful about what it is that you're watching, the reason that this is so, I don't want to say dangerous, the reason that this is so influential is another way to actually describe it, is because if you're just scrolling through your feed, whatever feed that is, whether somebody sent that to you as a video, they've shared it with you, you saw it on Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, when you're looking through the content, it's usually short form content. So something less than a minute, and that's the most popular type of content in the world. And when you see these parodies, if you're not looking carefully, you might look at it and go, is that real? They really said that? And you just scroll past it and you don't think twice about it. Then you see something like that again, and they're just chipping away at your mindset about something. And they're just chipping away about your belief systems with fake stuff, with AI and with parodies. They're funny things of all the things to do it with. They're doing it with humor. So I'm going to show you a video that kind of relates to that. And did you know that Biden wanted to build a railway line across the Indian Ocean?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I'm not joking, man. And it's not an AI video.
You mean he's not doing?
The way that you can spot the Joe Biden fake AI is he actually strings two sentences together and says something like coherent.
Now I'm disappointed. There's no railway around the Indian Ocean.
We're going to close out the show with a bit of a cultural discussion and a cultural conversation about Hollywood, how it's used for mass mind control. And we got none other than Roseanne to share a little bit of stuff with us. I really like her. I loved her show in the 1990s. I always thought she's been a great actor. And if you don't know, she's really outspoken, and she's a truther. She's she didn't want anything to do with a pandemic or vaccinations or anything like that. So she's got a lot of really good things to say, and she's an insider, so she knows exactly what's going on in that part of the world. So I'm excited to be bringing that to you as well. Ed, have you got any opening remarks for us, mate, as we kick it off here?
Just a shout out to everyone in my Hey Ed WhatsApp group and my YouTube followers, because we do stream now on the Hey Ed YouTube channel. If you don't mind, for those of you who are watching, let us know who you are and say hello in the chat room, and maybe ask some questions and just say hi. Let us know.
Yeah, drop a comment in there. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. All right, I'll let you take it away, mate. Kick it off. Why did you want to talk about CBDCs again? This is the merry-go-round that we're on. And every time we talk about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, man, it's getting closer.
Here we go again.
No, I'm like, we're closer. Not here we go again. I think, we're talking about this again, but it's nearly here. I did a monologue the other day, just before you get started there. I did a monologue the other day, and, we're talking about the voice to Parliament here in Australia, and how the idea of the voice to Parliament is that Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, wants to give Aboriginal people a say over all legislation that affects Aboriginal people. But there's no legislation that would ever be passed that wouldn't affect them. So that's everything from schools to hospitals to roads, because Aboriginal people are dispersed equally around the country, mostly in rural areas, of course, but either way, it still affects them. So they would effectively have a say over everything that goes on in Australian government. And when you look at what Albo's trying to do, if you look at it from his perspective, he's saying, I'm trying to bring everybody together. I'm trying to give that constitutional recognition to those people and give them a voice to Parliament. Even though we already have that in a bunch of different bodies, we already pay more than $3.5 billion a year to Aboriginal bodies to do the same sort of thing. And he wants to add another layer of bureaucracy, which is just total madness. But if you think of what he's trying to do, if I just put my feelings aside for a second, he's trying to bring everybody together. But what it's actually doing is dividing everybody between haves and have-nots. And when you look at the way socialists and communists work, what they're trying to do is to outlaw religion in those systems. There is no religion, because the only religion that matters is the religion of the state. And so the voice to Parliament is a version of the religion of the state. And it's a godless way of looking at society. And look, I'm not a religious person. I'm not a Christian. I'm not an atheist. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not anything. I'm just agnostic to all of it, right? I like lots of it, and I hate lots of it, and I just don't care about most of it. And so, but I do believe that the Christian values are the things that underpin our society. And religious values, irrespective of your religion, it's all, the same thing really, underpins the foundation of family. And family is what underpins society. And if you're getting rid of those things that matter in society, you end up in a godless society where you're dependent upon the state for everything, where you look towards a state for everything. I believe that the voice to Parliament is the first step here in Australia to completely and totally divide Australia into haves and have-nots. It's a division, and it's not a policy, and it's not a constitutional change. It's an agenda to divide us. Mm-hmm. Because the next thing to do is they're going to take away, so they're taking away your autonomy to have a say about something. And now the next thing that they're going to do is take away your autonomy to go from point A to point B with a digital ID, and you need to be tracked everywhere. And then the final stage in that is taking your autonomy away with your finances. What makes us a free society, and the difference between us and a communist society, is in communism, everything is shared collectively. That's a collective society. But with central bank digital currencies, that centralizes the power with the government. And that moves us 1 inch closer to a complete and total controlling society, where the government controls everything that you actually do, from your locations to what you can buy, to who you can see, to who you hang out with. And it just has so many nefarious things. It's just, I'm not sure people realize what they're doing with society as they're doing that, because it's dividing society. And the idea of dividing society is to then take complete control of society. And the way they do that is with money and with electricity.
Well, that is the big irony in it, right? Because on the one hand, they want everyone to be in their little boxes. You got to check your little box. Which box are you in? And maybe you're in several of those boxes, but you're in boxes. And so it increases tribalism. And the irony is, in the end, they want everyone under the state as you get. So they want everyone to be part of that tribe. So it's kind of ironic. They want you to give up, your individuality. Listen, America, like Australia, was built on rugged individualism, right? And we're moving,
not collectivism.
No, it's the opposite. We prided ourselves for not being Russia, not being communist, for not being right. And now we are moving toward that at lightning speed. We can't dive in fast enough. So
before you pull the trigger on that, I wanted to ask you about something that I was actually debating whether or not to do that report here today, but this is kind of part of it, so I'll do it here. So Joe Biden came out the other day with I don't know, he had some rainbow thing at the White House or some shit like that. There's rainbow flags in front of the American flag.
Yeah.
Like, what? Get rid of that shit, man. Like, well, you put them side by side, but put the American flag in front. That's what, and so they're breaking the rules to do with all of that shit, right?
There's no need for that pride flag. Oh, but we want to be represented. Everybody's covered, man. Everyone's covered by the American flag.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. We accept you all. It's okay. It's cool, right? We don't need that flag. We understand that you want to put it out there and do that. Cool. No worries. But you're still covered under.
You put it in the corner.
Anyway.
Put it in the fucking corner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in his speech there, he talks about how they come out with this message, these speech writers and these political writers, and it's got nothing to do with the actual day. It's got everything to do with the agenda. And he's saying, your kids are our kids. Yes. And your children are our children. And your children are loved by everybody and by the government. And so what he's doing is he's inserting collectivist language into the lexicon to say that your kids are no longer your kids, they're our kids.
Yeah.
They're the state's kids.
Yeah.
And we'll take them away from you because we determine how those children should be raised. And you say it all the time, you kind of got to go over to the stable, not very far away, to get onto your high horse to say that schools are indoctrination systems. They're not actually education places anymore. That's right. And so they're doing that. They're indoctrinating children. But who is doing that? The state is doing that. And when the leader of the state comes out and says, your kids are our kids, we love your kids just as much as you love your kids. It's like you're inserting that communist Marxist manifesto into the American lexicon. And I'm just looking at that, just thinking, this is like, I don't know, man. This is George Orwell, 1984, Animal Farm.
Yep.
Karl Marx. Like, what's going on, man? And people were just like completely like oblivious. Oh yeah, whatever, man. Like, who gives a shit?
Well, the liberals have been quietly doing that for generations now, but now that they feel like they're emboldened enough to say it openly, that your children are our children. That tells you, okay, they feel like they've hit critical mass. They feel that like there's enough support out there for people. Yeah, well, it makes sense to me. Yeah, and
do you think there's a bunch of people out there saying, "All right, you can have them. Good luck with that." Let's see how that works out for you, you fucking moron.
There were times when my kids were growing up when I might have been tempted to say, you take them.
You come across someone and say, hey, have you got kids? No, I don't have any kids. You want one of mine? I've been trying to get rid of them for like 15 years. I can't get rid of the fucking things.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, let's have a look at your report, eh?
All right. Good. Okay, so who wants CBDCs and why? So let's talk about it. Okay, so every major central bank in the world have created their own CBDC. CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. In America, the nickname for our CBDC is the Fed coin. Now, according to Investopedia, a central bank digital currency is a digital token similar to cryptocurrency created by a central bank. So last month, the Cato Institute released a survey that they did to determine the popularity of CBDCs. So I'm going to hit the highlights of that survey. So throughout the population, only 49% of the people they surveyed in America actually even knew what a CBDC was. Of the remaining half, only 16% supported the idea of a CBDC, whereas 34% opposed it. Okay, so obviously the people don't want this, at least those who know about it, right? Let's take a little closer look at the breakdown. Okay, so pay attention to this yellow bar here in the middle, because those are the people who oppose it. Amongst all people, 34% opposed it. Among Democrats, it was an even split, 22% supported, 22% opposed. And by the way, if you notice, the Democrats seem to be much less informed. They're pretty stupid compared to, the general population. Among independents, it was 27% opposed and 14% supported. And among Republicans, it was 53% opposed versus 11% supported. So generally speaking, the Republicans hate CBDCs quite a bit more than Democrats do. I wonder why. Could it be because liberals in general like the idea of being able to control your life? I think there might be something to that. If you look generally speaking, let's take a look at the way the Democrats and the liberals have been treating, the crypto space. Because crypto is a space where you seek your freedom, right? Where you seek to do your business and to live your life outside of the traditional monetary system. The Democrats' war on crypto will lose its key voters, Winklevoss twins. This is an interesting point, right? Because the demographic that is most likely to be in the crypto space are the younger generations, right? Because they're more familiar with this crypto stuff. So they like their cryptos. And the fact that the Democrats attacking cryptos so aggressively, boy, they might alienate a very important demographic. That's an important consideration in elections going forward, for the Democrats. Okay, so we know that the general population as a whole do not want these CBDCs. So who does? Now, we know that those who control the money control the world, and that's what this is about. Central bank digital currencies will be held by the Federal Reserve. They'll be administered by the Fed. So this is one way of getting rid of the smaller to medium banks. There's going to be much more consolidation in the banking industry, and that's what they want. They want to reduce and limit your choices. So what they have to do is get you off of your cash. They don't want you using cash anymore. That's what all these central banks need to do. They need to wean you off cash so that you are dependent and reliant on their little digital currency. And among other places, we saw it in Nigeria. Nigeria limits cash withdrawals to $45 per day in CBDC digital banking push. And actually, it's finally starting to work in Nigeria. People are starting to move toward their CBDC because they have to. That's the only way they can live their lives. And of course, our Federal Reserve here in America are going to be doing the same thing. They're going to have everybody opening up accounts at the Fed Now. Everyone's going to have a Fed Now account. And so it's going to be much easier to create bank runs with this Fed Now because you can just wire your money straight into the Federal Reserve. This is an attack on the traditional monetary system because they want you to have as little freedom as possible. So who wants CBDCs? Well, it's not the populace, it's the government. It's the central banks. And why do they want CBDCs? Because they want to control what you can spend your money on. They want to see what you're spending your money on, and they want to control what you can spend your money on. Also, when they want to get taxes out of you, they'll just take it right out of your Fed Now account. When you need to be punished for a bad tweet or a bad social media post that they don't like, they'll just fine you through your Fed Now account. And that's my little report for the day.
All right, sorry, I was mucking around with the stream there, and it wasn't quite working for me. Scary stuff, man. How they want you to open a bank at the federal, or open an account rather at the Federal Reserve, and that will become the norm. That will become the usual thing that they're looking for. Do you really think that that's going to happen? How far away are we from something like that?
Well, that's it, right? This is why I want to do this report, even though we've talked about it a lot. It's coming up fast, man.
Faster than you think, hey? It's like it seems like it'll be years away, but it's not.
Well, no, it's supposed to be in July. It's supposed to be next month. Now, my guess is they're gonna launch it stealthily, right? It's not going to be a big, because half the people out there still don't even know what it even is. So it's going to happen stealthily, and they're going to use that carrot and stick approach. They're going to it'll be a combination of, hey, open up a Fed, we'll give you 1,000 free, Fed coins.
We'll give you a hamburger if you inject something into your body.
There you go. Right? That's right.
What the hell is wrong with these people, man? It's crazy.
Yeah. And of course, the sticks would be things like you want to buy that gas guzzling car? Not unless you're willing to do it with CBDCs, or, there are certain things you won't be able to do with cash anymore. We've already seen it. Businesses, it's already hard to do live your life purely with cash these days. I mean, you told me stories where you've gone to merchants and they don't accept cash anymore, right?
Just says, it simply says a piece of paper that says we don't accept cash.
Right.
But actually, I don't think they're allowed to do that. I think that's actually against Australian law for them to say that because it's legal tender, right?
Yeah. So legally, but when was the last time you saw the government sue a business for not accepting cash?
Yeah, never.
Never. Yeah. I mean, constitutionally, the Federal Reserve is not supposed to be allowed to have retail accounts, but they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's just a very, very strange system that we live in. I want to just dig out a video file here that I created the other day because I think it's completely relevant to what we're talking about. And, you know, one of the things that seems to be happening over the, that has not happening, it's happened over the last couple of months, and we're seeing a lot of this happen. So I'll just take that out of the stream for a sec. The US dollar is going away, and we see the BRICS nations coming together to create an alternative version to the US dollar. And in the process of doing that, the relevance of the US dollar is going away, which is where all the United States gets its power from, right? So because they know that that's happening, I believe also that that could be another reason to accelerate the deployment of a CBDC. Because if you want to trade with America, if you want to do these things, what we're going to do is make it much easier for you. And they could probably use a carrot and stick approach to make that happen. And so there's a couple of things that happened in the last 24 hours that really made me think about that as well. Not in the context of CBDCs, but now that you've raised that, it definitely is in that context. So yesterday, I saw Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of the Palestinians, sitting with Xi Jinping in China. And he's sitting there saying, yeah, you know, thanks for your hospitality. And, you know, Xi Jinping's really polite. He's really nice. He's saying, yeah, we help you. We recognize your cause. And then I think about the Israelis dropping 2,000-pound bombs on their buildings and the Chinese going, we'll just rebuild it all for you. Don't worry about it, man. We got you covered. Don't worry. and then having access to the ports there, and having access to whatever they need. And then now they're right on the steps, or, you know, literally the front door of the Israelis. Like, are they going to let that happen? Well, I don't know, man. I don't think so. I think Bibi there is a little bit more hawkish than what you realize. So it's pretty interesting. But, you know, in the next 2 scrolls of my finger through Twitter or whatever I was looking at, I can't even remember, I see that the Saudi foreign minister is heading to Tehran. And I'm like, my BRICS head just went, what? What? And then the subheading to the headline is probably going to reopen the embassy or something along the lines of that. And I'm like, what? They were mortal enemies for the last 5,000 years. The Persians and the Arabs, they hate each other. What are you talking? I remember getting in a taxi in Bahrain, and the taxi, they just drive like maniacs over there, right? And this guy was driving like slow through the main part of Bahrain because it was all pedestrians and stuff. And he looks over and he's scowling at someone. He's like, like that. I said, what's the matter, man? What's wrong? And he goes, fucking Persians, like that. Like, he's an Arab guy, right? Fucking Persians, what are you doing here? You know, like that. And I was like, geez, man, like, take it easy. No wonder you guys have been at war for such a long time, because the taxi driver doesn't like the Persian pedestrian. Calm down, man. But, you know, I think that all of these things that are changing geopolitically around the world is going to accelerate the deployment of a CBDC, because they got to get there. You got to get it right at home first before you can fix it abroad.
Well, the acceleration of CBDCs around the world is going to be the coordination among the central banks, of course, and the big daddy among the CBDCs, of course, is the BIS coin, the uni coin, right? And so the uni coin is actually going to take the role of the US dollar now. Because where the US dollar before was like the default currency of countries conducting international trade. Well, now rather than using the dollars form of a CBDC, they'll use a unicoin, because the unicoin covers them all. It's
literally going to be like coming undone, isn't it?
If we let it, okay, it's all about adoption, right? Now Nigeria. Now there's a reason why these central banks had Nigeria do it first. You know, they're kind of off to the corner. No one really pays attention to Nigeria. Let's use them as a test case. Let's see how well it goes. Will people actually go for it or not? And Nigeria which is true for most of your poorer countries. They're much more cash driven than the Western societies, right? So if we can pull it off there, then we should be good everywhere. Well, the Nigerians did resist in a very big way the CBDC, but apparently the central bank, they're stuck to their guns, and this idea
it goes to the very heart of what you're saying. It's a carrot and stick approach. They don't care how much the population resists because they control the finances.
Right.
And that's what I started off by saying. It's the Communist Manifesto all over, where they're trying to divide society, get rid of families, and now they're going to destroy economies and control everything that you have in that respect.
But it was not a foregone conclusion that the Nigerian experiment would work. The central bank, because if you game it out, say, all right, so you say, all right, no more cash. You wonder whether it could have turned to like a barter country, a barter society, where people start trading their chickens for stuff and or gold and silver or whatever, or Bitcoin, using other things. So it was not a foregone conclusion that this would be a successful push. That's why, if it were a foregone conclusion, they wouldn't need to have Nigeria do it first to run the experiment. So this was a test case. They won't say this out loud, but trust me, all the big central banks, they got the room, they voted. Hey, Nigeria, you go first. And poor little Nigeria said, all right.
You know what would be interesting would be to go back and look at the history of the end of fiat currencies. You had that chart the other day. It was the Spanish, then it was the Portuguese, then it was the British, and blah, blah. And it would be interesting to see, like, the fall of Rome was because of inflation. But Rome didn't go away. Rome is a physical place. It's still there. There's still humans there. But what happened to society whilst that was coming undone? The only book that I can think of that really kind of describes that is The Death of Money in the Weimar Republic after World War I, when the Germans were forced to pay reparations to the French, and their whole economy just completely collapsed, and showed just how difficult it was. But it didn't go on for that long in the scheme of things. I think it was probably 12 or 18 months or something like that, but it was complete demolition of their society and complete destruction of their society.
Boy, talking about big ass rabbit hole, we could go down there with the Weimar Republic. The hyperinflation is really what led to Hitler's rise. Two things really: hyperinflation and the undoing of society. We saw there, transitioning people and sexual transitioning was started in 1926. Where? In Germany. And so all the sexual transitioning was going on back then. Their first transitional surgeries were going on back then. And society, and the movie Cabaret, it was set in Berlin during this time, where the morals of society just unraveled. We're seeing the same thing going on right now in our societies, in Western societies. You have major brand name stores putting tuck-friendly bathing suits for children in the store, and people are expected to accept it. You have the pride flag flown over the American flag. The degradation is part of it. Between that, so between the social unraveling, the social morals coming undone, and the economic conditions undone, that creates an environment for a strong man to appear as a savior. You know what? I know everything's chaotic here, but I'll get it under control. Just give me the power. Yeah, just give me the power I need, and just give me a couple of years. It'll be temporary, and then we'll go back to that. That's how Hitler got into power. And so this kind of environment is fertile ground now for some strong man figure to present himself as a solution, as the guy who will solve all these issues. You have in San Francisco, you have homeless camps in every one of the parks that your children cannot go to anymore. You know what? Yeah, you know what? I'll figure it out, and we'll take care of everyone. We'll make sure the homeless are taken care of in a nice humanitarian way. All I need for you is to scratch a few paragraphs off the Constitution for a few years, and I'll take care of everything. And so, if we're not careful, something like that could happen in our societies. So that's, I told you that's a rabbit hole. So let's pull out of that rabbit hole. We'll save that for another podcast.
But let me go down another rabbit hole that kind of maybe extends the rollout and the speed of the rollout for the CBDC. So let me just play this video. It only goes for a couple of seconds. So let's have a look.
selling to Djibouti have to look for US dollars. How is US dollars part of the trade between Djibouti and Kenya? Why? And we are saying that today, Afri-Exim Bank have given us a mechanism where traders in our continent can trade in their goods and services, and the Africa Exim Bank will settle payments in local currency. That is why Kenya champions the Pan-African payment and settlement system that is done by our own institution, the Afri-Exim Bank. Why, members? Why is it necessary for us to buy things from Djibouti and pay in dollars? Why? There is no reason. And we are not against the US dollar. We just want to trade much more freely. Let us pay in US dollars what we are buying from the US. Or trade.
It makes sense what he's saying, and you could see why he's an advocate for it. So that happened in January. I thought it was like more closer to now, but it was actually in January. So that's been rolled out. That's actually happened. Yesterday, I sent you a message. I'm not sure if you saw it because it was the middle of the night there, and it contained this: Egypt to settle trade with China, Russia, and India, so the BRICS countries, in local currencies, ditching the US dollar. So that's the beginning of hyperinflation for you, when all of the US dollars these countries have got in their bank accounts, they send them back home to the United States, and everyone goes, well, what are we, and off it goes, right? So this is the end, man.
Well, this de-dollarization process, which we've been documenting. Okay, very few days go by where some country is announcing that they're going to start doing businesses in their local currencies with their local countries. There is a very huge, and this is an earthquake event, not just for America, but for the world in a lot of ways. Now, America has been a bully in a lot of ways, using the US dollar as a bludgeoning tool, so we have, and so a lot of this we've deserved. We have painted ourselves into this corner, and most US dollars that are in existence reside overseas because people need in their reserve account in order to conduct international trade. Well, as countries start to stop using those US dollars, they're going to take them out of the vault. Hey, we don't need these anymore. They're going to send them back to America, and they're not necessarily physical dollars, by the way. These are U.S. treasuries. And they're digitized. Right? They just send them back. They sell the treasuries, and when a country gets desperate, Japan's kind of in a tough spot here now again. And they are the largest holder of U.S. treasuries in the world. The second right behind them is China. And so. Talking about weapons of mass destruction, so as this money starts flowing back to American shores, you're right, that's going to cause inflation. That is the definition of inflation. So that's why I've been predicting that inflation, not only will it go up, but it has to go up because of what's going on. We can't control this Pan-African program they're putting together. They're going to do it, and
it's already rolled out.
It's already rolled out, and China and Brazil, the BRICS program, right? And they're getting signatories every day, and I'm just waiting for the day when Ukraine joins. It's going to happen. Ukraine's going to join the BRICS coalition, and the Pentagon and the heads are going to explode.
So let me bring a breaking story into this discussion, because I'm wondering if. Central bank digital currencies will, the idea of it is that we can track everything, we can control everything, we can print as much as we want. And it's just, you're moving from a fiat currency to a credit. And there's quite a big difference between a credit-based system and a fiat-based system. And, that's beyond the scope of this kind of discussion. But the point is, money is something that's backed by something. So gold is real money. That's the only real money there is, right? Or Bitcoin, you could argue that that's the version of it there as well. But paper dollars, or plastic ones like we have here in Australia, are worthless. They're not worth anything. So the idea is that moving to a credit system is something different to that. And central bank digital currencies are not money. They're not fiat currency either. They are credits.
Well, they are fiat currencies.
It's a version of that, right?
Right. They're the digital version of our paper dollars.
So let me bring in.
They are dollars that you earn at your job, but instead of getting the regular, it's going to just be in a different form. And yes, they can print as many as they want, but they can do that now. But they're doing that now anyway with the
They're
fiat.
doing that anyway. Yep. So let me bring in a breaking story that's related to this, because I think it might be something along the lines of this. So I'll just share my screen here. So over here, Steve Bannon on the War Room has broken this story here, and this guy here, DC_Drano, check it out on Twitter. So the biggest story of the summer, it's shocking. Sequoia Capital is the biggest VC firm in China, and they've been caught investing in US pension funds, and they're putting dollars into Chinese military technology. Listen to this. Sequoia have been paying the GOP millions to not investigate and to protect Adam Schiff. So what they're doing is that central bank digital currencies stop something like this? So essentially, this is what they're doing. How a top Silicon Valley bank investor, Sequoia, bankrolls Chinese tech. And here's the evidence of them paying off. Look, McCarthy Victoria Fund, here's all the details of who's getting paid and what, and the amounts of money there. And that's why Steve Bannon is saying that's the biggest story there. And that company, Sequoia, is paying off Adam Schiff to make Sequoia, or however you say it, that they're paying off Adam Schiff to stop the investigation, to stop it from happening, because he's on the take. There's the cronyism and the corruption right there.
It's corrupt across the board. I am a conservative first, and I'm a Republican a very distant second. I have no use for a lot of these Republicans as well. Look, I'll vote for a Democrat if he says if he represents the right. Look, listen, RFK Jr. is starting to look pretty attractive to me. I got to tell you,
he's on Joe Rogan as well. See that?
Yeah. Yeah. Washington, it's a swamp and it's corrupt as hell. They do not care about you, the citizen. They're not there to represent you. There's a reason why the zip codes around Washington, D.C. are the most expensive zip codes in the country. All right. There's a lot of money. There's a money laundering operation. There's one big money. The Ukrainian war. It's just one big money laundering operation. It has nothing to do with defending democracy. Nothing.
Well, what about the idea of central bank digital currencies making all of that corruption go away? So here's the corruption in plain sight. Well, that money coming from this VC bank account to this over here, that is no longer going via a fiat thing. It's going via a central bank digital currency, via the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve can see all of this happening, and they can stop it before it's actually happening.
Well, it's a wonderful. See, this is the Boy Scout in you, Rob, that I love so much.
I'm not saying that that's a good thing, right? I'm saying that's actually a bad thing, because it's taking away the privacy of those people, whether they're doing something right or something wrong.
Well, look, that is one of the big selling points of the CBDC, right? Is to
stop the corruption.
Right. Is stop corruption and to stop illicit activity, because we're going to see what you spend. That's one of their arguments, but it's bullshit. They're not going to enforce illicit activities that they endorse. These guys are all on the same. Look.
So you don't think that you think that they would just turn a blind eye to it?
I mean, look, who owns the Federal Reserve? Is it the government?
No, it's private.
That's right. It's a private company. So who owns the Federal Reserve? The largest banks. The largest banks in the country own the JP Morgans of the world. 4 or 5 of your largest banks, they own the Federal Reserve. That's right. They don't want. Remember, originally, you and I both read The Creature from Jekyll Island, and we know that the initial reason for that cabal getting together to create the Federal Reserve, because they didn't like all the other banks that were popping up around the country providing competition to those core group of large banks. They wanted to They want to put a cabal. They wanted to control the monetary system, and those people right now they want that control back. They want all of it back. So they're these there's money to interest here. McCarthy, these guys are all corrupt to the core. I don't trust any of them. And even if a politician shows up there bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and innocent on the first day, within a few months, that guy is going to be corrupted too. He's going to go back to his brand new office that was just redecorated while he was at his Congressman Orientation 101 seminar, and he'd go back to his office, and there'd be a line of guys there in fancy suits with briefcases full of money. I'm
the Boy Scout. You're like the pessimist. Come on, man.
I'm the realist.
We're gonna find some middle ground there.
I'm just here speaking the untold truth.
Well, you're right. It is the truth, and unfortunately, it's a bit difficult to look at because as an optimistic person, and I believe most people are optimistic. I believe most people want what's right, want what's good, and do the right thing. That's a generalization, of course, but society as a whole would be a worse off place if that wasn't true.
Hitler thought he was doing the right thing.
No. It goes to the very heart of what you talk about all the time in trading. The markets are driven by people, even though they're algorithms, but it's still driven by people because people create those algorithms. It's driven just by fear and greed. And so, the Boy Scout in me believes that, fear and greed are not a factor when people get authority and power to do things because they're there on their own merits. They don't care about fear or greed. What they're trying to do is do the right thing. And I believe that most people that get involved in politics and those positions are those people, but then very quickly they just revert back to their reptilian human nature of fear and greed. And that's how all of this corruption happens.
A few of them go in with good intentions. But remember, most of these, we live in America, we have the two-party system, right? We have Democrats and Republicans. And the machine recruits the people that it wants.
Mm.
You don't get some barber talking to his guys at the barber shop, and they'll say, "Hey, you know what? You should run for office." Yeah, you know what? Maybe I should. Okay, that doesn't happen.
They're just going to scoop up a random YouTuber.
The party goes out, and the machine goes out and looks for the people who they want to groom to get into office, and then they back them and they fund them and they help them get elected. So this is all machine driven. Now you get everyone's wanting you get that odd, honest person like Tulsi Gabbard. Everyone's wanting you get those people with integrity. But when those people come in, they are targets. Because all the other interested parties who are corrupt, they want to protect their interests, so they are targets. They're smeared, and we were talking in yesterday's conversation how easy it is to smear someone's reputation. You had that woman who got up in the Senate there in Australia and smeared some guy with an unsubstantiated, grotesque, probably lie, and he has no way of defending himself, really, not in the court of public opinion, because once those words come out of her mouth, the damage has been done. Right? So it's very easy to ruin someone's reputation. And when you got the whole full force, when you have the freaking FBI, who you could put classified emails on your laptop and put it on a public server and not be investigated, or you could put, a White House photos in a bunch of boxes in your house, and you will be prosecuted. It all depends on how much of a threat they consider you to be. So it's a corrupt system. And now, in theory, in a democracy, democracies are supposed to be based on accountability, right, and trust. If you do your job well, you're going to be rewarded by being reelected. Is your life better off today than it was 4 years ago? That kind of thing. And that doesn't happen anymore. And now it's all people are so ingrained in their tribal in their tribe, whatever their tribe is. They will tote the line, and they will look past the blemishes and the flaws of that because they have a bigger agenda that they need to achieve. Anyway, I don't know how we got on this. How did we get on that topic?
I don't know. You pulled the white horse out of the stable and you got on it, and you were like trotting around on it, man, and just going for it. It was kind of cool. I was just letting you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a little break. And Ed and I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by you. In this crazy, uncertain world, we all need a way to protect and insulate ourselves from the outside forces that we simply cannot control. I'm a news junkie, and after a lifetime of constantly immersing myself in the darkness and the despair that engulfs the world, the path to shield myself and my family has become crystal clear. I want to invite you to come and join me in the Unspoken Truth community, where I'll show you how I protect my family from this crazy world. You'll get access to 3 masterclasses worth over $1,000, as well as our live events, training, and community of truthers just like you. Come on over to theunspokenTruth.com.au and join us for just 50 cents a day. What are you waiting for? Get started now at theunspokenTruth.com.au. Well, as I mentioned at the top of the show, ladies and gentlemen, you would have heard lots about artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and how that's going to affect elections as they come on, and how the news cycle is going to be affected. And no one really knows where the news is going to be in the next 12 or 18 months, because I can just go into ChatGPT and pull out so one example is I can go to YouTube, I can see a video that I like, I can look at the transcript of that video, turn the time codes off, copy and paste all the text out of the transcript, feed it to ChatGPT and say, summarize this for me. And it pulls out the summary of that, and then now rewrite that as if you were an expert in X, and it rewrites it for me. So I can take the transcription of something that's already been created and turn it into what you would consider to be maybe original content. Even though I'm using somebody else's stuff as the foundation piece for it, you've created original content by spinning it a couple of times to do that. And you could take that article out of context and just slightly change it. So I could copy and paste that transcript and say, okay, summarize this for me. Now, what I want you to do, ChatGPT, is to insert this particular fact into that article. And nobody has sat there and watched a 45-minute video or an interview about that. They may have. And that one little nuanced thing might completely change the context of what somebody is saying. And you'll never know. And mainstream media put it out there. You're scrolling through your feed. You see that, and you're like, oh, really? They said that? And so there's like a little bit of influence that's going on there. And it's so sophisticated. The language model is so unbelievably sophisticated that you won't be able to identify it. You won't be able to see it. So I want to show you a deep fake, and I think this is really, there's lots of them out there. There's lots of AI out there. There's lots of deep fakes out there. But I haven't seen one put together in a parody like I'm about to show you. And I think it really kind of goes to the heart of what I'm saying, that this is going to change the way that the media landscape will be. And what you've really got to do in media is you've got to find people, you've got to find human beings that are speaking to you and talking to you. But the problem is you can't tell if the human beings are real or not. You know this is a parody and it's fun. It even says it on the front end. Let's take a look.
No, that's bull. That's nonsense. We need some fresh ideas, better, stronger, and effective. Oh, God, I'm so tired.
Oh, I didn't let the last bit play. I'll let the last bit play there for you.
The Arty International.
Even the penguins were saying motherfucker at the end.
I love it. I wish now I'm envious. I wish I had put that together.
That's clever, huh?
Yeah, brilliant.
It's clever. The Russians saying like they can't, and Olaf Schultz in ChatGPT ideas for new Russian sanctions. He's about to press the enter key.
This kind of brilliant satire content is becoming more and more pervasive, which is brilliant. People using their creativity. This is their way of making commentary. Satire is a very effective way of influencing people.
Well, when you look at it from the Russian perspective, right, it comes from this Russian propaganda that they put out there saying this is so ridiculous, is what they're saying, and they can't think of another way to sanction us. Zelensky came out in the last 48 hours and he said, we had some Russian missile strikes, they were shot down, and we found some intact ones, and we pulled them apart and we found the components. And the components inside this missile were from more than 150 different countries. So the components to build the thing came from all of these different places. Well, kind of, okay, fair enough. And he said all of those companies should be sanctioned. All of those countries should be sanctioned. All of it's like, there's so many things that you can say about
I'm
that.
sure
like,
I'm sure there are American chips in there too.
there probably is, right?
Of course.
Well, on that very point, we just come back to this slide, don't we? Where how the top Silicon Valley investor is investing in Chinese firms. Once the pride of US finance, Sequoia is now funding Beijing's terrifying AI war chest. And it's not just a scary headline, it's the truth.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why anybody would be surprised at this.
You're not surprised?
Nah, I'd be surprised if it wasn't happening. No, I'm not surprised. No, I'm not surprised at all. There were stories. When Obama was elected, there were stories of a large Chinese guy showing up at one of the Ohio headquarters in the campaign for Obama with millions of dollars in cash from a Chinese. No, this
it happened here in Sydney. There was a Chinese property developer. I'm not picking on the Chinese, but they were the people that did it. And he had like an Aldi supermarket bag full of cash, handing it over to the politician. And they busted on camera, man, doing it, handing over bags of cash to politicians for, hey, can you fix this in the council for me? Can you make sure my development goes through?
I mean, look. From their point of view, why not do it? What do they have to lose?
So to your point about expectations, right? So you like the political satire of that deep fake video. It's like very clever how it comes together. But when it comes to written content and headline-based content, it's very, very hard to not become an instrument of the deep state. It's very hard not to, especially in a show like we do, where we're not creating the news. What we're doing is reporting on the news and saying, okay, look at that headline, stand back from that. And what is it that they're actually trying to say, and why are they trying to perpetuate that narrative? And I'll go into some more of that in a sec with Roseanne, because she kind of does a good job explaining that. What can we expect and what can we do as individuals to prevent being drawn into the narrative, particularly a deep fake narrative or an AI-based narrative, because it's impossible to tell the difference.
Well, okay. Well, the only difference between now and the last 40, 50, 60 years is that rather than only having the media putting the spin on, now the rest of us can do it too. So, people should always have been discerning consumers, and to the degree that they're not, to the degree that they are low information people, that's the degree to which they're going to be controlled. They're going to be more and more controlled. But with the advent of the internet and so many different sources of information that people have nowadays, they just have to, over the course of time, find a trusted source of information. And yeah, it might take you a while to stumble upon them. You might have to wade through a lot of but it is there. There are trusted sources of information out there. People just have to be willing to look for it. It's the people who are not willing to dig a little bit to find a trusted source. They're the ones who are going to be influenced.
Don't you think that's the vast majority of people, though, Ed? Like, not a lot of people sit and trawl through YouTube and watch geopolitical stories.
Well, I'll tell you, that's an interesting question, because I think that today, more and more people, there are more people today who are discerning, who do look for alternative sources of news than in the previous generations. When I grew up, there were 4 television stations, and they were all liberal, right? They're all liberal as hell. But that's when you only have one source of information. If you live in Russia and you have Pravda every day, and that's all you have for your source of information, and they're really good at making putting a news report out that sounds legit, but you have no way of knowing. You don't have a way of finding a counter to that argument. It's the only source of information. Then you're going to be influenced over the course of time.
And that's what I'm saying.
Right?
I don't think people are discerning enough to actually find the counter.
Well, I think that they are more discerning today than they were when I was growing up. Partly because
you're right. The dam blew up and they immediately said it was Ukrainians, not Russians.
Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, part of that was, even if someone wanted to be discerning, there weren't any other sources of information. You got those 4 channels to choose between. That's it. Now, if you were discerning, you could go out and find newspapers that you liked and magazines that were more truthful. There were ways, but it took more effort nowadays, click of a button, people can. And a lot of this has to do with who do you surround yourself to, who's with, who's your tribe, who, if I look at a person, I can make a pretty good judgment call about who they are by who their friends are and who do they surround themselves with. That's a fairly good barometer. The old saying, I can tell you how successful you're going to be by your friends. And who do you surround yourself with? Who do you listen to? But I think more and more, I'm always discouraged with the garbage out there that people do buy into. Because when you consider that this country is so divided, when you think that 30, 40 plus % of the populace is okay with putting tuck Fendi bathing suits in front of children, or it's okay to have twerking gay guys in a kindergarten. Yeah, it's okay. That's discouraging. What the hell are you thinking? So that's discouraging. So I'm trying to be like you. I'm trying to look at the optimism. I'm trying to be optimistic. Well, on the other hand, people have more sources of information today than they ever did before. And it's scary. This adoption of a CBDC. Okay, one of the reasons why I talk about it so much, and I put the message out so much on my channel, is to make people aware of what's going on, because most people are not. So I want to do my little bit to make a few people aware of what's going on and the evil behind it. But I'm afraid that most people are not going to realize the evil behind it. They're offering me a free $1,000 to come on to this new platform. Why not? It's free money. They don't realize it's the crack dealer saying, yeah, the first one's on me. The first one's free.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I saw a great interview with Dan Bongino and what's the other, Megyn Kelly. Dan had his contract up for renewal at Fox, and he decided, no, I don't want to do that. And so the interview was about alternative media, and so Megyn Kelly left mainstream media and started her own thing. And Dan Bongino has, the whole time he's been at Fox, he's built a Rumble channel. He's got, I think, 500,000 subscribers there or something like that. He's a well-known figure in the United States. He's a commentator, pundit, all of those things, right? So he didn't really need the Fox job. That's good for his brand, that's good for him, but like, what do I care? And he's not in a position where he's over a barrel, where he's like, in order for me to get that $2 million contract and, to build my brand and to do all those things, I have to say what they need me to say. It's like, I don't give a shit about what you want me to say, because I'm going to say it anyway, whether it's here at Fox or it's over there on Rumble. I'm going to do whatever I want to say. But the way he described it, and he said that, he said, what do I care about Fox anyway? Who watches Fox anyway? The only reason people were watching him were because of Tucker Carlson. Now he's gone. Now the only reason that people are watching it is because of the sport. So my relevance as a news anchor or, a pundit reporting on the news and commentating on those things is diminished because Tucker has left. So I might as well leave as well. And the way he described it, he said the people that are watching it are the one-click people. So they just get the TV remote and they go click. If it's not on the right channel, that's it. Just one click and they're right there. I can watch Megyn Kelly whenever I want. I just got to go to YouTube and type in Megyn Kelly, or if I want to find Dan, I just go over to Rumble, or I look at his Twitter and I can find him right there. Then it takes 3 or 4 steps to get there. I've got to type in the name, then I've got to find the video, then I've got to go to his channel, then I've got to trawl through his channel to see what I want to watch. Like people, the older people in society don't want to do that. They just want to point the remote at the TV, press the button, one click, and then they get what they want. And he said that's part of the reason that mainstream media and television is becoming irrelevant, because that cohort of people is getting smaller and smaller. And that cohort of people is getting more educated as well. So if they do want to watch Dan or they do want to watch Megyn, they can just get out their iPad or the laptop and do it themselves.
And you would hope and you would think that trend is inevitable, right? That it has to move in that direction, because people now they have their choice and they're exercising their choice. This is why the government is going after these sources, right? You had the government during that worldwide flu that we had there for a few years. They were parking themselves in some corner office at all of these social media platforms saying, all right, no, that goes. Dictator, in Australia, you saw where they were saying, hey, no, we need that off, we need that off, we need
I'll
that
park
off.
them in your Facebook group.
yeah. So the government, the deep state, we still don't have a completely free speech society. You and I purposely, I have to say worldwide flu because otherwise they could cancel us, right?
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
So censorship is still there. We're not a completely free society yet. Now, if you're smart enough to go to somebody like Rumble, there are options, right? So if people want to exercise their freedom, there are ways to do it if they want to look for it, if they want to find it. And this is why we talk so much in terms of establishing your own personal sovereignty and your own freedom. This is why we talk about this so much.
You got to get some gold and silver, baby.
Right.
You got to get it.
Yeah. That is, among everything else, that's at the core of this channel here, is to tell you things that other people are not telling you, and to help you, see the light, help you realize what's going on, and maybe even give you some practical solutions in order to look. The idea of establishing streams of passive recurring income is to give you a way to escape the matrix. Right now, if you're in a 9-to-5 job and you're expected to show up that day, and if you don't, your family is going to starve. That's why we want to give you forms of passive recurring income, so that you have the freedom to give your, we want you to have FU money. So that's true freedom, right? When you don't have to go to work if you don't want to.
I agree. Well, let's shift gears here. We're talking about censorship, which is, outlawing some sort of speech. For some reason, they can't outlaw stupidity, and stupidity keeps coming from your administration there. Did you know that Joe Biden wanted to build a railway line across the Indian Ocean?
Boy, I was waiting for that. It's finally somebody's going to do it.
There it is.
We're going to help. We have plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way across the Indian Ocean. We have plans to build in Angola, one of the largest solar plants in the world. I can go on, but I'm not. I'm going off script. I'm going to get in trouble.
That's how I know that AI is not, it's AI, because the AI couldn't possibly think of that. What do you think when you see it, man? I'm sorry, I got to have
poor man. The poor man should be in a nursing home, not the White House.
It's funny what he's saying, but it's not funny how that's actually happening.
This is the president. This is the guy we elected. Him and John Fetterman. These guys should get together and I don't know and write a book. About how anybody can be president. This gives hope to the stupidest person out there in the country. The worst crack riddled addict out there who the guy with you've been in prison. It doesn't matter. Anybody can become president of the United States. And Joe Biden is. It's all about the machine. It doesn't matter anymore who the president of the United States is. It doesn't matter who the senators are or the congressmen. The deep state runs the show. It's the people behind those guys. It's the people.
There's the proof right there.
Yeah, there you go. That's the proof. I mean, what more proof do you want? It doesn't matter who the president is. Joe Biden doesn't come up with any of these policies.
Well, he came up with that one.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. That was
all right. Let's see how Hollywood influences this. Hollywood is. I was trying to think of a graphic to put there, and I came up with Hollywood is a brainwashing tool for the masses. It is. Let me just share my experience of a movie here, and maybe as I'm talking here, Ed, you can think of one yourself. So I'll give you some thinking time. So back in 1986, when Top Gun came out, I was like, as a young fellow, I was crazy about airplanes, right? Because my dad worked for Qantas, and I just loved everything to do with military aviation. My parents took me to an air show. I remember the first jet that I ever saw was an F-111 at Schofield's air show, and the noise, the sound. It's one of my earliest memories, but I do remember that, not very clearly, but I do remember it. And then as I got older, I got more interested in those things. I had a picture of the Concorde in my bedroom, all sorts of things. And then when Top Gun came out in 1986, I was like 11 years old. No, I was 9 years old, sorry. And my parents took me to the drive-in. So young people watching this wouldn't even know what that is. and we watched Top Gun. And I remember being like pissed off. Yeah. And I remember thinking, what? There's no such thing as a MiG-28. That's an F-5E. What is, I was really pissed off that Hollywood took such creative license to say that the enemy had an aircraft called a MiG-28, because there's no such thing as a MiG-28. And even if there was such a thing as a MiG-28, the plane that you're using is an F-5. I actually hated Top Gun as a movie. And I hated, and that's because, I don't know, some people would call me a purist, and they would say, you're the purist. And then when Top Gun Maverick came out, and, there was just a big giant delay there because of COVID, they put out all of the trailers, they put out all of this stuff, the modern day version of it. And I thought to myself, there's no F-18 Super Hornet pilot out there that's launching off an aircraft carrier without a helmet-mounted display. They're not doing that. And the first footage you see is he's got the old school Gentex helmet and he doesn't have a helmet-mounted display then. I'm like, and I went looking, I remember looking through just F-18E, F-18F Super Hornet pilots, and I'm looking for people that are sitting in the front seat and they don't have a helmet-mounted display. In the Growlers, yes. In the F-18G, not always wearing that. But in the E models that he's portrayed flying in that movie, they're not doing it. And I'm like, but you can't see his face if he's got a helmet-mounted display because they're all tinted because of the augmented reality onto it. And but I was really pissed off. Like, the very first thing that you've butchered that. I know that's Tom Cruise. Put his visor up and then put it down. Then I can see that it's him, right? I can see his face. But you could have, but they didn't. They butchered that. And then there's a bit. So just work with me here, right? Because this really pissed me off.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking they show the carrier shots, right? And they show him sitting in there and he's like wiping out the controls and he looks over like that and he holds the towel rail and he's ready to go and they're ready to shoot him off. And you see the footage of the cameras looking back at him and I'm like, he's sitting in the back seat of an F model. Because you can tell by the little, he's not in the front seat. Like, the purist like me knows that that's fake. Okay, it's a movie. It's creative license. Calm down, dickhead. It's not meant to be real life. It's just like, stop it. But there's something in me that kind of like pisses me off, right? That I just don't like. And I remember seeing the movie, and it's actually a really good movie. If you look at it for what it is. If I put all of that like nuance aside, it's actually really good. But I remember leaving the theater after watching Top Gun Maverick, and my missus was like, Did you like that? And my daughter was like, wow, that was so good. It was like, that was amazing. It was, wow. She was like really wowed by it. And I was like, wow, she's finally interested in aviation a little bit, right? And so that was kind of cool. But my missus was like, did you like it? And I said, that whole thing was Hollywood brainwashing. She goes, what? Because they did a good thing of keeping the story under wraps.
Yeah.
But there's footage in one of the trailers where you see they're flying around in Super Hornets and there's cool footage of F-18s. And then in the end, you see the arse end of an F-14. And I'm like, the only Air Force in the world that is not the US Navy that has F-14s is Iran. And I remember seeing that and going, well, you just let the cat out of the bag for everybody. So there's an attack on Iran and he gets shot down and he steals an F-14 and he makes his way back to the carrier and he's the hero. That's the story. That's the protagonist. And I remember going, oh, you ruined it. Don't ruin it. Just a movie, man. Just calm down. Just let it go. Like, and I never, ever get riled up about this stuff. And you know that I love film and television and writing and all these things, right? But this like really kind of annoyed me. And when they're flying through the canyons and they fly up the top of the mountain and they roll inverted and pull down and they get their laser guided bombs into the target there and blow up the thing in the mountain. Where do you think that is? It's in fucking Iran. The whole thing is to get you ready to understand that we are going to take out the nuclear facilities in Iran. That's how it's going to happen. That's what we're going to do. Would we do it like that with a bunch of fighter jets and make that happen that way? Well, maybe. It's possible that we would do that. But you know what I do know is that you'd have to transit all the way across Iran to get to the northern part of Iran in Tehran, which is on the other side of the Persian Gulf. And you'd have a hard time getting through all those enemy air defenses. You probably wouldn't do it with Super Hornets because you need stealth to get in there. And why wouldn't you just rain down a ballistic missile from Vandenberg Air Force Base? That couldn't be shot down with one missile and you'd take the whole thing out, a conventional one. You don't need a nuke. And I was just like, the whole thing is Hollywood brainwashing. So I want to play a video here from Roseanne. Before I do that, I want to ask you Do you ever get pissed off with movies that brainwash you like that?
No.
You know,
You sound
you're one of the brainwashed zombies.
Yeah, no, you're 2 words: suspension of disbelief. Well, 3 words, right? When you go to a movie, you know what you can. You sound like my 2 boys when I took them to their first Harry Potter movie.
Well, Harry Potter I can buy into because it's complete and total fantasy. You know, you're trying to overlay real life and fighter jets and navy and all of this stuff.
Okay, well, I take that back a little bit because when that movie Avatar came out, I was so pissed. I wanted to leave halfway through, like 15 minutes through it, but I was there with my boys, so I couldn't leave.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one. It's just all propaganda. It was all ecology bullshit. It's about saving the subtext. It's not about. It's about grooming. Yeah. So I take that back. A lot of movies, Hollywood is about grooming people. They have a message, a very liberal message they want to get across. You cannot have a romantic couple anymore without them being opposite sexes or opposite races. You can't have a white and white couple or a black and black couple. They have to be intermarried. You can't have a straight couple anymore. How many commercials you watch on TV? How many couples are actually of the same race?
I was watching a TV show on Stan here. It's called North Shore. So I think I mentioned to you it's filmed on the North Shore of Sydney, and they do a really good job of not oversourcing the pudding and showing how beautiful Sydney is and all the locations. And if you were watching it, you'd be like, wow, this is a beautiful place. And it is, right? And they do a good job of showing that. But it's a police show, right? So there's a scene in the episode last night where the camera is in front of the whiteboard and the cops are all standing around. And the main character is a black Aussie girl. And then her partner is a Kiwi Maori guy. And there's the British Pommy copper that's there. And then there's the Ochre Aussie dude, and then there's the Australian Asian technical person. And I couldn't help but think for a second, this is like just a whole diversity play. But then I thought to myself, actually, Sydney is like that. And it wasn't oversourced and it wasn't overcooked or overdone, and they weren't trying to do what Avatar did with some ecology bullshit that really grinded
your
gears.
When they're bending over backwards, they're in order to fit a narrative they want to put like that Avatar movie. It was all the big propaganda piece.
That's true. They are conforming to the narrative, but in actual fact, in actual reality, that's actually what a Sydney workplace is like.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah, that's fine. But there are other scenarios where that wouldn't be true.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, in real life that's not true. That wouldn't happen that way. When when Tom Cruise ejects at Mach 10 and survives. Okay,
we're just gonna leave that little part of the story aside and go with the joke where he walks in for a glass of water or some shit. I've seen a bunch of videos and watched the making of Top Gun Maverick, and there's a series of interviews about the Navy pilot who was the advisor on that movie, and he goes to take he's about to retire, and he goes home to his missus and says, hey, they offered me this job to be the advisor on Top Gun, and this is what I'd need to do, and this is how it would come to life, because they're working closely with the US Navy to make it all happen, right? And she says, you must do this. You have to do this. And he said, I don't have to do anything. What are you talking about? And she goes, you have to do it. Because if you don't do that for the rest of your life, you're always going to be complaining about that movie that it was wrong. And I thought to myself, wow, that's really cool. So I heard this interview before and I thought, wow, that's cool. It's going to be really good. And then when I got to the movie, I was like, bro, you kind of like butchered it a little bit. You could have just fixed those little nuances. You could have just
okay, look,
things.
Okay, so my take on the Top Gun thing, it was pure fantasy, pure, suspension of disbelief, man. It's just there for fantasy. It was made mostly for guys, and they threw a little romance in for the girls. But it was a guy movie. It was, the movie, it was set up. I think you give them too much credit when they say, when they're trying to prime the public for the idea that we're going to bomb, Iran someday. They said,
Are you
"Yeah, of
sure?
course."
Really? I was going to ask you that.
I-
I was going to say that subliminal message. You're not picking it. You're not buying it.
No, I picked up on it. I surmise that yeah, it has to be Iran
Who
because
else
of,
could it
but I don't think they were given script notes from the White House or from the Pentagon. Say, hey, you know what? We need to get the public on our side for a potential attack on Iran. So why don't you choose this for the script? I don't see that happening. I think they're trying desperately to find a script that was somewhat believable or somewhat had a nice arc to it and that had a nice story. You can't have Tom Cruise going against Russians anymore because he already did that. You can't have. So I mean, what are your options? It had to be.
He did say that, didn't he? About why didn't you make another one, a sequel? And he goes, there was just never a script that was worth doing, and this was the script.
There you go. So I think it's more that than the idea that they were prepping the society for the idea of attacking the Iran nuclear. Nah, I don't think so. I think.
All right. I'll let you have your view. I'll go with my view. Let's have a listen to what Roseanne has to say about that, because I really believe that it is in anticipation of prepping you. And let's hear what the Hollywood Insider has to say.
An organized crime network, and that's what it is. It's like pimps up, hose down.
Yeah.
That's how I always describe Hollywood. It's like, okay, your agent, pimp, another word for pimp.
Yeah.
Your lawyer, another word for pimp, and the hoes are the talent, and they think that talent is expendable, and they think the people running Hollywood are the pimps, and they are. It's just like any other business.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the thing. In the end, it's also just business.
It is business, which is organized crime. All business is nothing but organized crime, ain't it?
It really is, yeah.
So, I mean,
And maybe this is
also
just,
the Hollywood.
It's a bit of a cynical view of the world, right? But I see where it's a bit of a long bow to draw to say that your lawyer is your pimp and you're the hoe. Like, anyway, let's hear her version of it, because she kind of unloads a little bit here.
Hollywood got in bed with the CIA, and so that was government money given their way to portray certain things for mass media, for mass consumption.
yeah.
And to keep people in line, to keep them like thinking fairy tales instead of looking at the truth of, hey, where's my tax money going? It's like, oh, and then Richard Gere falls in love with the prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard. Don't go down there and actually look at the 12-year-old prostitutes that live on Hollywood Boulevard.
Right.
Believe the bullshit lie that, the boy always gets the girl in the end, and, that, there's friendly aliens and, anything Spielberg does. It's just for mind control. Mass media is for mind control, and people are being paid, and they're happy to take the money to make sure that they keep the population under mind control and quiet. They want docile workers,
Yeah.
like in China, docile workers. They didn't have that in America. They had loud people that were pissed, working class people that are pissed and going, I'm going to turn you into this and that if you don't this and that. So they brought in all these immigrants. That's what it's for, is to break the back of the working class labor and pay. It's like they'll do it for 2 cents. You want a $5. You want a $15 at minimum wage. So we brought them in. They'll do it for 2. See ya.
Yeah.
It's just cruel, but that's what business is.
That's what business is, really.
Yeah, it isn't no love story.
Right. Even though it's so, like, and that's the interesting thing about Hollywood, is that it sells love stories. It sells like
bullshit.
Right. So it gets you to believe these things. And maybe at one time it believed in those things. It was, but I do think that over time it has been.
It never did, because you have to look at the movies that come out at the specific. I'm just talking about movies.
No, okay.
Mass and TV. I had my own shit in TV, which that would take 5 shows to go into the mind control of TV and advertising. It's mass mind control, and but the movies, when you look.
Do you think it's a cynical view of the world, Ed?
Yeah, well, she's starting to sound more like a conservative Republican than before the
Than a democratic Hollywood.
that's
person?
right. But yeah, she's finish this up, because I got some definite thoughts about what.
Well, I'm just thinking, like she seems like a bit cynical about it all, like it's about mass mind control, and it's that, and I say Top Gun Maverick is mass mind control to get you used to the idea that we're going to bomb an Iranian nuclear facility. But to your point, you're like, what are you talking about, man? It's just a movie. Just go watch the Avengers, man. Just enjoy it. It's like, it's fun. Can't you have a bit of fun? Why does it have to be so serious all the time? But what, to her point, she's saying that is pacifying you. And that's making you docile.
Okay, so this is marketing. This is what marketing is, right? If you drink Coca-Cola, you're going to save the polar bears, right? Well, Coca-Cola it's got more sugar in it than it's like it's poison. But by drinking Coca-Cola, you're saving the polar bear. It's marketing, right? And look, during World War II, a lot of my favorite movies, my favorite war movies, were, I'm sure, financed by the government, to produce a propaganda film about PT boats in the Philippines, but they're good movies. It's about supporting, getting the public to be patriotic, so they buy more war.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you could be cynical about it and say those things, right? And say, oh, the CIA funded that movie about PT boats because they want you to join the Navy and fight the evil Japanese enemy or whatever, right? But you could say that about anything. You could say that about a book, about a news article, or anything.
Every war has had propaganda involved in it. Every government, every dictator, they rely on propaganda. Propaganda is the most powerful tool. Propaganda, in another word, is marketing. That's what marketing is. So this is why it's important to teach people, critical thinking in school. Learn how to be a critical, thinker. Coca-Cola. Well, yeah. They showed me an ad about saving a polar bear, but you know what? It's got full of sugar. So people have to learn to think for themselves, right? So
I'm going to take my emotions out of Tom Cruise sitting in the back of an F-18F, pretending to sit in the front.
That must have drove you nuts.
It did.
There's no way he's in the front. There's no way he's in the front. He's a fucking Hollywood. They're going to put him in the front seat and let him take it off himself.
They're not going to let him touch the controls ever.
No.
What are you thinking?
I'll tell you though, me too. I was disappointed when I found out that he was in the back seat. I found out early on because there were all those trailers and they talked about it. So it was,
the making of it. Let's finish off Roseanne here, shall we?
Okay. The time frame that a movie comes out, you have to look at the whole political geography around it and why it's coming out and what it's saying. Because a lot of times it's kind of a fortune-telling thing, and it's predictive programming, it's called, because it's telling you what's going to happen pretty soon. Especially science fiction. What's going to happen pretty soon. Because they're in bed with the government and the CIA.
Right, so they're in bed at this point with with groups that have more intelligence than the average layman or whatever. Regular guy.
So let's end that there, because I think she's kind of drawing a bit of a conspiracy theory long bow there. It's a business. People make movies. They want to have distribution and create movies. But there is some element of truth to what she's saying about Hollywood and the mass mind control. But you say, like we said, we can say that about media. We can say that about what we're doing. It could be a version of mind control, saying, don't stop looking at everything over there because the truth is over here. Use your critical thinking. That's a version of mind control as well.
Well, one of the big mysteries in life for me is that podcaster guy has more followers than we do. I mean, and he's not a very good interviewer. I mean, imagine if we had, her on as a guest.
Don't worry, I got more to say on that. I'll tell you some inside gouge after we finish this call. I got some announcements for here internally for the Unspoken Truth, but I'll share those with the audience as they become public as well. Cool. It's pretty cool. So I think that's a nice place to wrap up the show. We got a comment there at the end from Super Sanjim 2. Sorry if I butchered your name there. Thank you for your feedback, and we appreciate you saying that it's good content. Share it around for us. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it with your friends and your family. If you like the content, we do this every single day. We're live every day at 5:30 a.m. Sydney time and 2:30 p.m. Minnesota time. So we really appreciate you tuning in. We've had about 20 or 30 people scrolling in and out, coming in and out as the show's going. Don't forget, we're available as a podcast as well in your favorite podcasting app. We're over on Twitter, and make sure you scroll down and click the link to join us over on Telegram as well, because we've got a lot of unspoken truth over there. There's a lot of COVID-related stuff that just simply cannot be spoken about on any other platform. So I make sure I put it all there in Telegram, and we're in the naughty corner over there, so we can do whatever the freaking hell we want over there, which is kind of cool. Ed, have you got any closing remarks for us, mate, before we close out the show?
Yeah, everyone, you ain't heard nothing yet. We got some really good shows coming up. So, if you want to hear some mind-blowing material, please hit that subscribe button and tune in, or at least watch the recording. We got some really good stuff. I think we've had already a lot of really good content, but it's just going to get a whole lot better coming up here.
Absolutely. All right, Ed, let's get out of here. See you tomorrow, mate. Same bat time.
Same bat channel.
See you, mate.